guys for being here.
It's going through.
We're all done.
Done.
Very, very nice.
Yes.
Oh,
Done.
not so bad, baby.
You want to come back?
Hello and welcome to Marriage Behind the Shield. My name is Danelle and this is my husband Sean, and we are the host of the show. It is a Christian-based ministry focused on those serving as first responders in our community. We've been married for 31 years and 27 of those years in law enforcement. We currently serve as associate pastors of a local church, and my husband currently serves as a police volunteer chaplain with the Fairfax County Police Department. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you all for being with us. And again, our guests this week, Brian and Maureen Chwepi. And last time we were together, we were talking about just developing that oneness as you are deployed in the military. And Brian has had a long career in the Navy as, did they call you
Submariners.
Submariners?
There's a little argument.
Sailors?
Submariners, submariners.
Yeah. And so we appreciate you guys being back.
Yeah.
What we wanted to talk about in this segment was that kind of emotional intelligence component that helps you to deal with difficult situations, difficult circumstances that you might face as a military family. You want to talk a little bit about what that is, give our audience kind of a definition of what that is.
Sure. Emotional intelligence basically is knowing what to do and doing it. You know, what is right. And we talk about responding, first responders, and we're trained to respond. So when we get on scene or you get on an incident, you don't have to figure out what to do. You've been trained in what to do. And so emotional intelligence is the fact that you're not going to wait till the situation happens to figure out what to do, but you've already thought it through. You know what you're going to do. And for us being Christians, we know we don't have to figure it out. It's in the Word of God. There's nothing that we will ever go through that the Word of God doesn't talk about, doesn't give us solutions. And so that emotional intelligence is not letting how you feel run, you know, renegade and run ahead, but it's okay, let me pause. I feel this way, so we validate it, but it doesn't mean we react to it. We have to respond according to what we know is right. And so we had talked about earlier, you all had to do long deployments. I mean, he's in a submarine for 3 months. You don't have access to him as far as, because there wasn't email, there wasn't texting at the time, there wasn't any of the internet things that we have today. And you had mentioned in our last segment, when she was able to communicate with you, you still couldn't communicate back to her. And so it's the fact that you're getting that connection, and for her, there's no connection back. Not because you didn't want to, you couldn't. So that emotional intelligence is keeping it together when you're lonely, when you're not sure if your spouse is okay. And so I want you to speak to that. How did you feel those times that he was deployed and you really couldn't get a hold of him, but then things were going on at home that you basically had to deal with by yourself?
How did I repeat the question?
So you could send him messages, and I think you said it was like 200 characters.
It was a 200 character,
Right.
yes.
So emotionally, he's getting to hear from you, but you, on the other hand, he couldn't respond to you.
Right.
So how did you deal with things that were going on in life that you would both deal with and talk about, i.e. finances, children, whatever it is that you had to handle when he wasn't there? How did you deal with that?
So for a lot of things, you know, some things I would go to my family and ask them, all right, you know, how am I, if there is a big financial, okay, you know, the washing machine broke. What am I supposed to do with this? I mean, those are things that we grew up doing, but I had never done them because we were young when we got married. So these were things I wasn't used to doing, you know, and kind of getting guidance from them. And then just praying that it would be all well when he came back.
But I think one of the things that we want to draw from you is not those practical things. I mean, those things happen. This breaks,
Right.
you know, this bill comes up. But what did Maureen do to help Maureen? Like, how did you fill that emotional gap that was missing when your husband is deployed?
So talk about when the car almost got stolen.
Oh yes, it did almost get stolen. I actually I went out and I'm like, oh no, the window's broken in the car. So amongst my tears, I'm just praying, God, what do I do? So I call up my friend again and say, okay, the car window's broken because I was supposed to meet her, and I'm like, I can't meet her. So she's like, what? Okay, you know, she came over because she knows at this point my husband's not there. I'm home alone, and this happened in my driveway. And it was the driver's window, so I'm going, somebody did this. I don't see how it could be anything else, you know, at that point, I don't know. So she came and got support, and I went back out, and actually I take a step back. Actually, I went, I said, okay, the window's broken, what am I supposed to do? And they're just like, call insurance, we'll get it. So I call insurance, so I'm like, well, let me go. It's a nice day, I can still drive over. I went to start my car, and I could not put the key in because something was in the ignition. So it came down to just praying. You know, for me it was prayer. It was depending on those friends. It became becoming involved in the church.
Yeah.
For a lot of it, I was on the housekeeping. We'd straighten the chairs. We would do whatever it was, and then it was a time where, you know, for my friends who were, those friends, especially those who had husbands in the military, saying, you know, how do we go through this? It's like, you know, they're out there.
Yeah, it's good.
So I hope that kind of answers your question.
It does, because it helps us know that you're not alone. And I think it's so important to have community, especially when your spouse is deployed. And so the community, especially when it's a healthy community, can help you with the emotions that you go through, whether it be, i.e., you're lonely, and you just want your husband or your wife back with you. The responsibilities of the house fall on you, and sometimes that can be a heavy burden, especially if you're working outside the home, and then coming home and dealing with that. So Brian, how did you feel knowing that, you know, your wife is bearing the weight of this? I know you appreciated it. How did you come back to the synergy of everything that's going on, and not just throw yourself totally in? Or did you just throw yourself totally in and said, I'm back, I'm Superman, I'm here?
That was basically, that's what happened. Because like I was saying, for me, the world was turned off. There was a steel tube with a bunch of guys in it, and we were somewhere in the world.
Hang on a second. You said that a couple of times, how you turn it off. It's clearly, or surely, for a lot of people, it's not that easy.
Right.
So when you say turn it off, what does that mean, and how do